This video has been sponsored by Skillshare. Stick around to figure out how you can use their platform to take your hobbies to the next level. After more than half a year of living in my current apartment, I think I finally lost it. There's a part 1 to this, but you don't really need any context to understand what I'm about to tell you. Earlier this year, there was a huge cold spell across the United States. I'm talking like -30 Fahrenheit outside my apartment. So cold that the crackheads that normally be standing outside of our building asking for Fed money finally left us alone. Inside my apartment, however, I was feeling it too. Because this building was built back in the Neolithic age, it used single pane glass that was at most a couple millimeters thick for all of the windows. For context, most windows built after the 1950s are double glazed, which means there are 2 layers of glass with an insulating gas in between. This stops heat from leaving your house as easily, because it's much harder to get through 2 layers of glass and some gas than it is to just get through a single piece of thin glass. Anyways, want to guess how cold my apartment got as a result of these pathetic windows? Maybe 70 degrees, 65 degrees. I measured the temperature inside, and at one point it dropped to 42 degrees Fahrenheit. The windows themselves got so cold that after the sun went down, my entire room would turn into an igloo as a layer of ice formed on all of the windows. I was effectively living in Santa Claus's gulag for elves that didn't meet their production quotas, down to the fact that I was also unpaid labor with no health benefits. Exacerbating the problem was a trickle of water in the anemic radiators that ran the entire length of my room. A geriatric retirement home patient, otherwise known as the average U.S. senator, could have mustered a more vigorous stream of liquid. And it probably would have been warmer, too. To sleep in these conditions, I put on a shirt, hoodie, and jacket and slipped beneath both a duvet and a comforter. I'd still be shivering by the time I went to sleep around midnight, but if I wore more than this, I'd wake up in a sauna of my own sweat. Now, like your average Minecraft YouTuber meeting up with their underage fans, this feels illegal. And it is. In most cities in the United States, it is illegal to have temperatures below 60 degrees during the winter. 42 is definitely below 60 degrees, so you'd think that my landlord in the apartment buildings would be trying their hardest to fix this problem so they don't get sued. My landlord was actually pretty good in this respect, as she offered to buy me a heater out of her own pocket to supplement the pathetic radiators the day I told her that this was a problem. Unfortunately, the cold meant that nobody at Amazon decided to go to work, so it took 4 days for the heater to show up. And when it eventually did show up on a Saturday, I was informed that the mailroom was closed. Apparently, the mailroom people had special permission to handle our belongings or something, and that didn't extend to the normal employees. So no, according to the front desk people, I couldn't get my heater because they would get in trouble. Oh, don't worry about it though, the front desk lady said, because you could get your package on Tuesday. Why not Monday? Oh, because it's a federal holiday and the mailroom people have off work. I'm being turned into a fucking human popsicle in my own apartment, and the only thing you can come up with is, oh, I don't want to get in trouble. You asshole, I don't want to die of hypothermia. I even tried contacting the housing association that oversaw the mailroom people to ask them for permission to go into the room, but they were off work too. They didn't even pick up when my landlord called them. Now, can somebody tell me why is there so much bureaucracy in an apartment building? I seriously have no idea whether or not this is a normal thing, but I could get an appointment at the DMV faster than the time it'd take the goobers in my apartment building to pass a message up their chain of command to let me into a mailroom to pick up my package that's going to save me from freezing to death. It took 6 days of wearing my entire wardrobe to sleep before I eventually got the heater. Needless to say, by that point, some permanent damage had already been done. Even though I wore gloves to sleep, I'm pretty sure I got nerve damage in my hands because I feel the sharp pain in my fingers every time the outside temperature drops below freezing. Funnily enough, I also had problems on the other end of the spectrum, and no, I'm not referring to the mental disorders that the people running my apartment have. Over the summer, the 5 windows in my room meant that I essentially lived in a greenhouse. So when the outside temperature started to climb into the high 90s, I really needed my window unit air conditioning to kick in. Instead, when I turned it on, I realized that it was essentially an over-glorified fan. All it managed to do was circulate the hot, stagnant, sticky air in my apartment, which had the net effect of making me feel like I was a crawfish being boiled alive. With all of the blinds drawn, all of the windows open because my apartment was hotter than the outside, and a fan pointing directly at myself, I would go to sleep wearing just a pair of shorts and still wake up drenched in so much sweat that I left a crime scene outline of my body on the sheets. It was disgusting and uncomfortable to live like this. I felt like a pig rolling around in boiling mud, but there was nothing I could do. Like the heater issue, it took a week before my landlord and the apartment's bureaucracy managed to negotiate a goddamn NAFTA trade deal in order to get a new window AC unit installed. Even then, the repairmen were yelled at by the front desk lady because they hadn't made an appointment. Apparently, you have to pay $300 to make a repair appointment if you bring anything heavier than a backpack up the elevators because they don't want you scratching the paint or something stupid like that. But before the front desk lady could raise her elephantine form out of her chair and waddle past the desk to stop us, I just ushered the repairman into the elevator and told them not to worry. While they were installing the new window AC unit, I was spamming the elevator call button so the front desk lady couldn't call it herself. And when they were done, I let them down into the garage below the front desk and out of the non-functional fire exit, which, in spite of all of the warnings plastered on it, didn't contact the fire department when it was opened. They thought the whole thing was hilarious, and after a quick chat about how stupid this whole system was, they decided to dip before the front desk lady caught on to what had happened. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, Jeff, your apartment sounds horrible. Have you ever tried to do anything yourself to make it nicer? Well, in fact, I have. Instead of wallowing in my squalor, I've decided to do something completely out of character and learn more about home design. After looking around, I found this course about using plants at home and have been hooked ever since. By listening to the course's advice, I've been able to not only find plants that fit my living environment, but also take care of them by learning what the state of their leaves and their roots says about how healthy they are. It's incredible how much of a difference this course has made in making my apartment feel less like a CIA interrogation cell and more like an actual home. Now, I've been able to do all of this thanks to today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community in the world with thousands of classes spanning everything you could possibly be interested in. How do you use plants in interior design? What's the best way to run a handmade crafts business? How do you use online tools to do UI UX design? How do you get started using Adobe Illustrator to create digital art? Skillshare has answers for all of these questions and far more. Whether you're a career professional looking to get a competitive edge at your job, a student looking to dive further into your hobbies, or someone like me who is just interested in learning about things that you have no experience with, Skillshare has the resources to help you achieve your goals. Their classes are taught by industry experts and divided into short digestible chunks so that even if you only have a couple of minutes a day, you can still learn something new. So what are you waiting for? The first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started with learning today. Anyways, while my temperature hijinks were extremely miserable, they weren't the worst thing that happened to me in that apartment. Explaining that distinct honor requires a bit of context, so bear with me. My eyesight is bad, but the biggest problem isn't being short-sighted or far-sighted. Instead, it's astigmatism, which means that the outer cornea of my eye and my inner lens aren't aligned correctly. Glasses have never fixed my astigmatism and neither have normal contacts, so I wear night contacts. These force my cornea to conform to their shape and subsequently cure the vast majority of my astigmatism. It really was like magic the first time these things worked. Not like Logan Paul wearing colorblind glasses magic, but like a wheelchair-bound person learning to stand up by themselves again. These contacts come at a price though. One of these will run you nearly $1,000, and that's not including the doctor's visits that you need in order to calibrate the lenses. Now, this wasn't a problem in the past because my family's health insurance used to be very good. My mom worked at a local university, but she's since left that job. So the portion that I pay out of pocket for a new set of lenses today is pretty much their market price. Understandably, I was tweaking when I managed to drop my contact one morning and it bounced into a crack between the tiling and the wall. There was a radiator above the crack as well, so the whole mess looked like this. The radiator stopped me from sticking my hand in there, so any tool that I was going to use to get my contact out would need to be pretty long. I tried to use chopsticks I'd gotten from a takeout place, but even these were too thick to fit in the tiling crack. Furious at the fact that I had just lost a contact that was worth more than my monthly rent, I decided to take drastic measures. I went to my research lab and, after grabbing a hammer and chisel, I spent an hour smashing through the 9 randomly distributed nails that held the siding in place and ripped the entire piece off in my fury. This finally opened a large enough gap for me to slide some tweezers in and pick up the contact. After deep cleaning it with hydrogen peroxide and rinsing it with saline, I held it up to the light and carefully inspected it. Knowing that even the smallest defect could scratch my cornea in a way that requires surgery to fix, I was playing with some high stakes here. Eventually, I worked up the courage, or maybe the stupidity, to put the thing in my eye, and was pleasantly surprised when I woke up the next morning and still had vision in both of my eyes. As for the siding, I pulled an Uno reverse and did the landlord special. Since I'd already destroyed the nails and really wasn't intent on hammering more in, I superglued the fractured pieces of siding back against the wall and filled the cracks in with gout that I borrowed from one of my grad student friends. With a little bit of white paint, it honestly looked better than the original because it wasn't covered in pockmarks from haphazardly driving nails into it. It remains to be seen whether or not the landlady will notice, but I think I did a pretty good job, all things considered. Remember to like and sub just in case she takes my deposit.